Miscreated was a survival game that never felt like it found its footing in the survival gaming genre. It's a very smooth running game with a feel comparable to DayZ at the time. It took a lot of the same survival aspects of DayZ but ran really well. The game for launch was rather smooth and from the get-go was called a DayZ killer. So exactly what happened? Miscreated did almost everything right on its end. Smooth gameplay, servers that weren't too terrible but could never even break the 7,000 player mark on Steam. So what exactly was Miscreated missing? What was holding back Miscreated from being not only a DayZ killer, but even just a notable survival game that holds a decent player count to this day? So let's survive the final war together and explore Miscreated's world. The first video promotion posted to YouTube was posted 7 years ago in 2013. Very impressive, as DayZ would have only been getting a decent exposure for about a year now. Either way, these early videos showed some assets that devs were working on and some real early gun grenade models. It wasn't until 2014 for the actual alpha trailer to be released. Boy, compared to the other videos, it did some great numbers. While other videos averaged around 10,000 views or less, this video got 125,000 views and was very well received. The trailer itself was short but sweet introduction into what the dev's vision was for Miscreated. It did what it had to do, showed off what you would expect from a survival game. Player-made bases, dynamic location, a sort of zombie-like enemy, and detailed locations. I really liked the route they went with this. They showed what they had to and kept the video short enough not to waste any viewers' times. It was pretty obvious what the crowd it was trying to attract. The hardcore, more realistic style survival game, along the lines of DayZ. So this is where things get a little interesting. There never was another trailer or release video uploaded on their channel until after the release of the game. That video, published in March of 2015, gained over 110,000 views. So even with this absence in announcement videos, with all the hype and so far well-received trailers, Miscreated had been pulling some decent numbers. Right? Well, not exactly. The first month of Miscreated's life, the game peaked at under 300 players. And it took a while to get any better than that. After a while, the game had even dropped below into double-digit player count. This slow start will have an effect on Miscreated's life, but we'll get there in a bit. So why was Miscreated's release so silent? Even with a huge gap in trailers, you would think enough players would have had this to their wish list or at least kept an eye on it. It would actually take almost 2 years for the game to find a footing in the market. So, what happened? Well, I don't really have a specific answer, but I have a few theories. My first thought is that it came out the exact same month as DayZ came out. At the time Miscreated only had 100 players, DayZ had 45,000. So players had a choice, and DayZ was a much more familiar name to go with. The only other theory I have is that people already had their chance of survival games and didn't really want to spend much more money of a chance of a new one. I mean, DayZ was around 40 at launch and Miscreated was 20, so in total that's already $60 on 2 games for a chance of just one of them to be good. Looking back, it's kind of ironic that DayZ had more players than Miscreated. Well, Miscreated wasn't perfect at all, but personally I had much fewer problems running Miscreated. The only way I could have seen this going in Miscreated's way is one of two ways. Either it comes out right before DayZ and tries to push itself hard, or it comes out a couple months after the hype of DayZ died down and the problems with DayZ are shown. Fortunately, Miscreated didn't know how buggy DayZ would be, and probably didn't want to push the release back anymore. Miscreated released to pretty decent reviews, even called the DayZ killer by a very small group of people, who maybe even had a decent reason to call it that. DayZ's launch was ugly and nothing to be proud about, while Miscreated wasn't perfect either. It was a little bit more enjoyable of a launch than DayZ. Well, at least to me. Unfortunately, it would take a while for Miscreated to find a decent sized player base, and even then it would take about 2 years, and at this point it would only peak around 5,000 players. DayZ at this point had 14,000 players. So, as DayZ started to lose their player base and Miscreated grew a small player base, what would happen now? I think what we're seeing here is a player base growing tired of DayZ and trying something new. Fortunately, I think most players were experiencing a burnout with survival games in general, so by the time Miscreated could even start building a player base, they were just looking for something new in general. And I have a sneaking suspicion at what could have been taking all of the attention away from survival games. Here's a couple of hints. A few games share the same concept of a bunch of players at the start, but only one can win. I wonder what I could be talking about. Yeah, around this time, Battle Royales were getting a lot of attention thanks to games like H1Z1, Fortnite, and PUBG. It is unfortunate, but the timing adds up. A lot of people who just enjoyed the PvP aspects from DayZ were much more attracted to the quick game, where dying didn't mean the loss of hours of hard work, it just meant the loss of a 30 to 45 minute match. And a lot of these games added a competitive aspect, only attracting more and more of a player base. With extremely bad timing on release and a growing trend pushing survival games on the back burner, Miscreated was off to a slow run. So where does it stand nowadays? Miscreated has only continued to fall, which only around 500 to 800 monthly players, which is a lot lower than I would have guessed because these two fine gentlemen played the game recently.
Cool shit like this, it's like, you know, this is the kind of stuff I want in a survival game. Cool areas, cool points of interest to go into to find loot.
This is me. I'm getting fucked up.
That's not you. That's you?
I'm 10%. I'm gonna die.
Killed you.
I'm gonna bleed. I'm gonna bleed out.
No, you're not bandaged.
I don't have bandages. I don't have bandages. I don't have.
Right-click bandage.
I don't have bandages.
Right here, take.
When two of the largest streamers play a game, you expect it to give a bit more of a life, which is kind of shown with the around 300 player growth after they played, but I would have imagined a much larger group of people would hop on after this type of scenario, which is kind of shown by the around 300 player growth after they played, but I would have imagined a much larger group would jump on after that. In better news, it seems like this small growth at least seems to be sticking on for a while. I actually found myself enjoying Miscreated while replaying it again. Playing it back in the day, I've had pretty much the same exact type of feelings for Miscreated as I do now, but I would say I enjoyed my time with it a little bit more back in the day than I do now. Just overall exploring the world, meeting a lot of friendly people made this game a lot more enjoyable to me than DayZ. I specifically remember one encounter of a guy playing as a taxi driver picked up me and a bunch of other random survivors and would drop us off at various locations. At one point, his taxi was rushed by about 3 to 4 people, I don't remember specifically, and with guns, and tried to rob him and kill the rest of the passengers. We all got out, ran our separate ways, and just hoped for the best for each other. It was a strange and quick encounter, but it was very unique and I enjoyed it. And on launch, I really did prefer Miscreated to DayZ. It honestly just has some of the most unfortunate timing that I've seen. Miscreated isn't a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, and I wouldn't call it a dead game. Miscreated is just a lot more enjoyable with a more populated server, but still enjoyable in a very small server if that's just what you're going to have to work with. I recommend this one to anyone who enjoys DayZ and maybe has a group of buddies that play with them. And for $20, it's definitely worth the money. Either way, that's going to do it for me today, guys. If you guys enjoy the video, leave a like, subscribe, stick around for more content. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.